Cemeteries are usually places of sadness, but they do not need to be, as it is very easy to liven them up. Cemeteries are meeting places for the dead and the living they left behind. It is a place where time can stand still for a fleeting moment to allow infinity to show her face and to beckon us to contemplate about death, life, and the universe, its past and its future. Cemeteries offer us space and time. They can be easily used to promote many things that get outdated too quickly and end up being discarded and forgotten too soon in this quick-paced modern world. 1,000 years, to many people, is a time span too long to comprehend, but 1,000 years in the life of our universe is like a blink of an eye for us. A blink lasts about 1/10 of a second. This is too fast to see, except when it's a wink directed at you by the opposite sex. A wink is clearly perceived and its memory can persist a lifetime. So cemeteries are more like winks than blinks. Cemeteries showcase gravestones that offer brief descriptions of lives gone by. Unfortunately, most gravestones get discarded. Once the families who have paid for them forget their dead ancestors and stop paying for their graves, or the cemetery runs out of space, the church has no other choice than to have the gravestones and the graves removed. We all have relatives, even if only a mother and a father. We all have as well 4 grandparents, which double in number each generation. If we go back in time long enough, we all find cousins, even if they are distant cousins we have not known about. The further we dig into our ancestry, the more relatives we uncover. If we dig deep enough, we discover that the whitest European, the yellowest Chinese, and the blackest African are all distant cousins. It is estimated that there were about 100 billion people born since modern man made his presence 50,000 years ago. The few people who were present at the beginning of mankind had multiplied and increased to 7 billion people over about 2,000 generations. We can plot this on a curve rising from a few on the bottom to the 7 billion at the top. We can also plot for each and every one of us on the top a similar curve going downward, showing our ancestors increasing exponentially in numbers. The point where the number of our ancestors equals the world population is the demarcation showing the point where we share our most distant ancestor with all people alive today, as well as all the 100 billion that have been born. Studies have used computer modeling to estimate that the most recent common ancestor, called MRCA, of modern humans lived between 2,000 to 5,000 years ago. There is a limit to growth where the population stops and starts to decline. Riggisberg is expected to grow over the 1,000 years as it grows from a small town into a big city. Additional churches with their cemeteries will be built, leaving the present cemetery with its present size. But death will continue and will increase as the population increases. At present, the death rate for the cemetery is about 20 people per year. This accumulates to 20,000 over 1,000 years. Only 1,000 gravestones can be placed around the 300-meter cemetery periphery before additional space is required in about 50 years. Proposed pillars, 2.5 meters high, contain 90 gravestones each. For the projected 20,000 deaths, about 200 pillars are needed. 33 pillars can be stacked, forming a 25-meter-high structure which can be placed at the 3 corners of the cemetery. With the will and support of the community, from politicians, school boards, church congregations, and citizens, the cemeteries and their gravestones can be given a life. The beautiful carved gravestones can be used to build walls, pillars, and even buildings on the church ground. The various stones made of granites, limestones, and marbles, usually polished on the front side and left natural on the back side, can be used as examples of rocks that can be touched and closely inspected. This is not possible with samples found locked up in glass cages in museums. In addition, cemeteries can be used as the starting point for timeline and planetary walks, demonstrating the grand vastness of our universe in its age and size. The size of our sun is over 1 million times greater than the size of our planet Earth. It is about 150 million kilometers away, and light from it takes over 8 minutes to reach us. Our solar system is even bigger. Light from the sun takes 4 hours to reach Neptune, located at its outer edge. The closest star in our galaxy is so far away that light takes over 4 years to reach it. And for light to reach the closest galaxy to our Milky Way, it takes 2.5 million years. The size of atoms are as small as the size of our solar system is big. We are in the middle of it all. A piece of dust is exactly halfway between the size of the Earth and an atom. An atom is mostly empty space. If an atom was represented by a 100-meter diameter sphere, then its nucleus in the center would be a 1 millimeter diameter ball. All the atoms in our bodies were cooked in the sun 5 billion years ago and are a non-renewable resource that are used to make everything, whether life or non-life. We are made of stardust, and after death we return to stardust. Nature recycles atoms in life forms by using bacteria to decompose organic material so that the fungi and the plants can use them to eat and grow. Animals eat the fungi and the plants. We, in turn, eat the plants and the animals. There are as many atoms in a human cell as there are cells in a human body or stars in a galaxy. There are as many galaxies in the universe as cells in a human. This mixture of atoms is so thoroughly mixed that it is estimated that we ingest every day about 500 atoms that were at one time in Napoleon. The human body is about 70% water, and once the water is removed, we are mostly proteins, which are mostly only hydrogen and carbon, and air made of oxygen and nitrogen atoms. Just like we find ourselves in the middle of the wide range of sizes from atoms to galaxies, the time intervals we experience are in the middle of the time scale of atoms and galaxies. Atoms rotate thousands of trillions times each second, and galaxies take thousands of trillions of seconds to rotate once. Cells can only divide a certain number of times before they become unusable, like the fading copies of copies. Normally, larger and slower animals live longer than smaller and faster ones. A fly lives only a few weeks, while a whale can live to be 200 years old. Many plants in lush, fast-growing jungles live only 1 year, while giant trees can be 5,000 years old. The oldest living thing found is a creosote bush in the Mojave Desert, which is more than 11,000 years old. The amount of time you live is largely determined by how well you are taken care of when you are young. If you survive to be an adult, then your lifespan is largely determined by your lifestyle. If you eat right, stay light, don't fight, and play safe, then you can expect to live about 70 years. But once you die, even in the safety of a coffin, you will be only bones after a few years. From the cemetery in Riggisberg, Switzerland, the timeline starts at the church. The church marks the beginning of the universe 14 billion years ago, as well as the present. This is done by scaling it so that the 14 billion years is laid out over 40,000 kilometers, allowing the trail to go all the way around the Earth. This as well allows the 14 billion years to be compared to one day. With this scaling, 1,000 years corresponds to 2.8 meters or to 6 milliseconds. Life formed relatively late in the universe's lifetime. If the universe was born on midnight of an imaginary day, and if the present time right now was midnight at the end of that day, life would have formed about 7 hours ago. It formed and developed and evolved very slowly and gradually. Fishes, plants, and fungi appeared about 50 minutes ago, and insects 30 minutes ago. Dinosaurs roamed the earth 25 minutes ago for about 17 minutes. Flowers started to bloom and birds started to fly around about 15 minutes ago, and the bees joined them 3 minutes later. Man popped up and showed his head a third of a second ago to try to tame them all. We can often learn from the past and be able to see better ahead to our future. Continents keep moving, and it is not possible to change their momentum and movement. Africa continues its slide over and into Europe, and in 100,000 years the Mediterranean Sea will have dried up. In 1,000,000 years, technetium-99, that is the waste byproduct of the present nuclear power plants, and which poses a danger when inhaled, will have decayed and will have ceased to be a threat. Several kilometer-sized asteroids and comets on collision course with Earth, however, will become a new and even greater threat to man's well-being, if he is still here to be threatened. In 100 million years, the continents we are so familiar with will be unrecognizable. Everything eventually dies and comes to an end to be born again. In 1,000,000,000 years, as if to celebrate the evolution of fish, plants, and fungi 1,000,000,000 years ago, the sun will become too hot for life of any kind. It will evaporate the oceans, and man will be forced to leave Earth and look for new solar systems to exploit. The last one to leave will have no need to turn off the lights.